After making $20,000 in a single month, I lost completely everything. Literally everything. And you're probably asking, how the hell did you manage to do that? Like, what did you do? How did you sell the bag? Well, if you don't know me, my name is Jackson. I'm 21. I do high ticket sales. And, I've been doing it for a really long time. I mean, I've been in the game for a little over a year and a half now. And, I've made, pretty decent money, I'd like to say. But that wasn't without cost. That wasn't without going through a lot of hard shit. That wasn't without going through losing everything, like I said. And I'm going to explain in the video exactly what I did, how I got to that point of rock bottom, and how you can prevent that as well. So to give you a little bit of background context, I used to be a college kid. I used to be a degenerate, like not really doing anything with my life. And ultimately one day I just decided that I wanted to lock in. I wanted to make a change. I wanted to stop being like that. And, I started to become an entrepreneur. I started to view success differently. I obviously started high ticket sales, got into it, started making pretty good money. And of course, like before I started doing high ticket sales full time, I had a job. I was working at Jimmy John's, made $13 an hour. Work schedule was ass. Hated it so much. Finally got to quit because high ticket sales was doing really well. And, I started making really good money. I was a setter at first, making a couple $1,000s a month, and I started closing deals, and I made, 10,000, 12,000, 15, 18, 20, and life was great. I was planning on dropping out of college because I didn't want to be there anymore. I didn't know anybody who was, like-minded. I felt very isolated, and I wanted to surround myself in with different individuals in a new environment. And, my parents were obviously not supportive of that. They didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't tell them anything. And I really wanted to let the results speak for themselves. So, I was making really good money. Like I was mentioning earlier, I felt like I was on top of the world. I, never had this much money in my life. And that's when things kind of started to go wrong. Why is it always when you have everything that you want in life and you're successful that the knife appears at your back? That's exactly what happened to me. So pretty much I was doing really well, like I was doing my thing, making money, and I started to slip a little bit. There were a couple of signs where, I started slowing down. I started letting my foot off the gas, didn't really feel the need to work as hard. I felt like I had accomplished everything I wanted to. And that was a grave mistake. That was the beginning of the end whenever I started to just, maybe not press on the gas as much. And it's very deadly. It may not seem like anything off of the rip, just because it's so harmless, but it's very detrimental, and it almost ruined my entire journey. So yeah, I was taking calls. I started taking less calls. I started making less money, and I was just lying to myself. I was literally lying to myself. I was feeding myself lies, saying, "Oh, you don't really need to work too hard. You've already made this amount of money." It got to the point where if I wanted to continue living with my parents, I wouldn't have had to work for like over 2 years at this point. I could just live off of the money that I had. And I started to let my foot off the gas. Started spending a lot of money too. And that's another thing is, I upgraded my lifestyle. I started spending more money, like all this new stuff. And that was another big mistake. So money started getting spent. I was losing money. I was making less money too because I was taking less calls. I was getting comfortable. I didn't really have anything motivating me to get out of bed in the morning, to take more calls, to make more money, just because I was satisfied. And that's whenever my old self started to creep in. I started getting back into old habits. I started, becoming that old version of myself instead of the new version, right? I started letting my old life kind of slip back in. And it was terrible because I was just telling myself lies and I didn't even realize what was happening until it was too late. So I started spending all this money, right? And at the worst time possible, my parents started asking me like what I was doing, because I was taking sales calls in the house. And they're like, "What are you doing?" Like, because I didn't tell them anything. They're asking me all these questions, and it somehow got to the point where I told them that I did not want to go to college. I don't know how it happened. It just kind of came out. And, as you could guess, they were not thrilled with that at all. It was terrible. And before all this started happening, I was at a pretty low. I was already in a bad headspace because I was losing money. I wasn't making a lot of money. I was spending a lot of money. And I really wanted to not go to college. And I didn't really have anything to show for it, right? Because I, pretty much spent a lot of the money that I made. I upgraded my lifestyle. I got comfortable. And I didn't really have a solid foundation to stand on when it came to leaving college and everything. And, whenever I broke the news to them that I didn't want to go, they were furious. they were heartbroken. They said it was like a slap in the face to everything that they had ever done for me. And, to be fair, they are right to an extent, but it was just not aligned with who I wanted to be. I felt like I wasn't really being able to help anybody. I wasn't going to become successful going to college. I didn't feel aligned. And, to them, it was just all kind of a waste. So it was a screaming match. My parents told me to go F off. Like, they kicked me out of the house. So I didn't really have anywhere to go. My laptop barely worked. The battery would die in 10 minutes. I couldn't even take sales calls. I had to start taking sales calls in a Starbucks, literally. And, I was couch surfing. I went to like this girl's house who I met from college, stayed at her place for a couple of days, and I stayed at my best friend's house. And it was terrible. Like, I was so depressed. I didn't really have anything going for me. I couldn't even like do anything. And I felt like I was a failure. Honestly, like after doing all that, I just felt terrible about myself because I noticed that I was lying to myself, letting my foot off the gas and letting myself get to the point of where I was at that point, just having nothing, nowhere to go, right? And I knew that I had to make a decision. I knew that if I wanted to get out of this position, to get out of this depressing state that I was in, I had to do something about it. I had to move forward because that was really the only way was up. If I wanted to go down, I probably would have been dead. And, that's pretty extreme, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to learn from my mistake. I wanted to get back up on my feet and make it happen. Because if I can do it one time, I can do it again. So, I started getting back into the flow of things. I started taking sales calls because I had to go back to school after this. This was during the summer, before school started back up again. So I broke the news to them that I didn't want to. I got kicked out. Parents did not talk to me for weeks, like literal weeks. Like it was almost a month before they even said anything. So I went back to school after I got kicked out. I was taking sales calls in my college apartment. I was doing whatever it took. Like I was taking calls 12 hours a day. Like I did not care. I was, back in that mode because I knew that I did not want to be comfortable. I can't afford to be comfortable because if I stay comfortable, I have to go back to college. I have to go back, and I did not want to do that. I was willing to do whatever it took to not go back to college. So I knew that I had to get results. I knew I had to show my parents, hey, I actually have something to show for it. I'm making money, and this is what I'm going to do. And I couldn't do that at the time. So I knew I was in the dilemma, right? It was like a make or break, go big or go home, right? It was like I saw my life going in two different directions, and I had to decide what I really wanted to do. And obviously I wanted success. I wanted to keep chasing high ticket sales and make money. So I kept doing it. I kept failing. I wasn't making as much. I felt like a failure because I felt like I couldn't close as many deals. I wasn't making enough money. I was tying my self-worth to how much money that I was making from closing deals. And I just kept pushing. I kept failing up until, I started getting some consistency back. I started seeing a little bit of results and just working my ass off every day because the pain of staying where I was and going back to college and seeing the life that I was going to live if I went this way, it was terrible. It was gut-wrenching. Like I would have rather died, genuinely. And I know that's kind of crazy, but I rather would have died than gone down that path in life because I knew that I was, destined this way. God, had placed this opportunity in my life and I wasn't going to squander it. So, I put my big boy pants on. I tied my shoes and I went after it every single day. I did not care. I sacrificed everything. I stopped going to the gym. I started missing meals just because I was taking so many calls. I was just trying to close as many deals as I could. And, I went back to my parents' house and I had this conversation with my dad and I was like, hey, this is really what I want to do. This is how much money I've made while I was gone. Because pretty much what was going to happen, if I wanted to stop college, I would have had no support from them. I would have had to do everything on my own, which is fine. Like I'm doing that right now, but I would have had no support, nothing, nowhere to live, not a couch to sleep on, no food, no nothing. So if I went broke, I was homeless, So I knew I had to get out. I had to do something. And I came back to my dad and I was like, hey, I made all this money. This is really what I want to do. I have a plan and I don't want to go back to college. And he's like, okay, it's your decision. You can do what you want. You just have to understand and live with the consequences of us not really being supportive, not really wanting to, help. And it was really heartbreaking because the reason I was doing all this was for them. I wanted to provide, I wanted to give back to them, and it was just like a slap in the face whenever they just kicked me out and told me to fuck off. And that I was just a disappointment. And it sucked because I was doing it for them. You know, I wanted to show them that I could actually do something for once in my life, and them just, you know, it was terrible. And, you know, all I really had was God and myself. And I made it work. I was willing to do whatever it took because I knew there was no other option. And fortunately enough, I kept pushing, I kept going. I started making the same amount of money, told my dad, hey, this is what I want to do. And he, you know, of course was like, okay. And I didn't go back. I didn't even look back. That did not even enter my consciousness. Quote by Marty Supreme. But yeah, I had to learn from a lot of my mistakes. And I want to make sure that you don't make those mistakes as well, because it's so easy to get comfortable. It's so easy to let your foot off the gas when you start making life-changing money for the first time, because you've never had it before. And, you know, shit really doesn't matter. You don't have to work. But I mean, you do in the future, because you're going to start to lose it all, exactly like I did. And I bet you people will say the same when they start making 100K a month, 200K a month, right? They upgrade their lifestyle and they let their foot off the gas. It's the same lesson. You know, I just happened to learn about it earlier on. So it's really just a matter of how badly you want it in the bigger picture, right? Because you're going to make money and you're going to be really at a level where you've never been before, but you want to be all the way up here, right? So you're going to stop and you're going to forget about this big goal because you can be comfortable now, and then you're going to go back down, right? And you do not want to do that. You just want to keep that foot on the gas. Like, no matter the cost, because you have this goal of retiring your parents, you have all these big things, and just because you made your first 10,000, 15,000, whatever, that does not mean shit. I'm sorry. And like, coming from me, it was the most amount of money that I'd ever had, but it was the poorest that I'd ever felt. And it's when you realize that there are genuine levels to this shit, right? You just passed the first big milestone. I don't say that to be a dick. I say that because I want you to learn from my mistakes. Because I thought I was the shit for making this money, you know, and I threw it in my parents' face and I got nothing out of it except disappointment and eviction, if you want to call it that. But yeah, so that was kind of the moment where I lost it all. That was kind of the moment where, you know, life was very difficult for me and I had to pull through. I didn't have an option. And I want you guys to not do that, because that was terrible. It was very, you know, mentally challenging. One of the worst times in my life. So yeah, just know that you don't have to go through that if you just learn from that. Because, you know, if you're watching this, you probably want to be successful. And it's going to come a point in time where you get to that point and you just got to go. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's so important to just have that bigger picture vision in your mind and have that push you every single day, no matter how successful you're getting. Because it's easy when the money's flowing, you know? But when it's hard is when you don't have anything and your back's against the wall. That's really when you're going to get tested. So learn from my mistakes. Don't do any of that dumb shit. And I hope you got some value out of this video. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more about what I do high ticket sales. I'm going to leave a link in the description going over specifically what I do and how you can get started, how you can make your first 10K month with high ticket sales. So if that's something that you're, you know, interested in, go and click the link. Follow me on Instagram too if you want to learn more. A lot of sauce in there as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. Hope you resonated with it. I hope you can, you know, take some value out of that again. But that's it for me. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.